You can also click the subscribe button below to get notified when we release new videos. Mahatma Gandhi is widely recognized as the pioneer of nonviolent resistance, or as he called it, Satyagraha. But what many people don't know is that before becoming a full-time activist, Gandhi was actually a lawyer. In fact, he practiced law in South Africa for several years before returning to India in 1914. And it was this legal training that gave him the idea of how to resist the British Empire. In today's episode, we're going to find out exactly how Gandhi became a lawyer, how his time in the courts impacted his political development, and how his ideas about nonviolent resistance were rooted in his understanding of the law. So let's get started. Mohandas Karamchand and Gandhi was born on October 2, 1869, in Porbandar, India. His father, Karamchand Gandhi, was the Prime Minister or Dewan of Porbandar, while his mother, Putlabai, was an ordinary village woman. Now, even though Gandhi was born into a Hindu family, he was raised in the ways of Jainism, which is why he was a vegetarian and an abstinent from alcohol and other intoxicants. When Gandhi was 13 years old, his father died and his mother moved to Rajkot, some 25 miles away from Porbandar, where she had spent most of her life. At this point, since tradition dictated that a young boy should live with his mother after the death of his father, Gandhi left school and moved in with her. He later enrolled at a high school in Rajkot, but soon he would have to leave because he was getting married. Now, despite being only 17 years old himself, Gandhi was set to marry a 14-year-old girl named Kasturbai. Arranged marriages were very common in India at this time, and this one was no different, even though the couple wouldn't be living together right away. Since both of them were way too young, their marriage still had to take place first. So on April 1883, the wedding ceremony was performed, and a few months later, Kasturbai moved in with her new husband. They would end up having 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls. After finishing high school, Gandhi decided to move to London to study law. This was a very common thing to do among the upper-class Indians at the time. It was not unusual for wealthy Indian families to send their sons abroad to acquire an English education and become a lawyer so they could return home and serve as a judge or a government official. However, unlike most of his peers, Gandhi had to work while studying. To pay for his tuition at the University of London, he took a job as a waiter and even did manual labor to support himself. All this made him keenly aware of the plight of the working class. In 1888, Gandhi earned his barrister degree and returned to India. But he soon realized that he couldn't make money as a lawyer there. There were far too many English lawyers looking for work in India, and competition was fierce. So he returned to South Africa to try his luck there. For a while, he experienced racism firsthand, like when he was thrown off a train for refusing to move from a first-class carriage. Despite these setbacks, Gandhi persevered and managed to build a career as a lawyer representing Indians in South Africa. But this didn't mean that he was happy with British rule there. On the contrary, he saw the injustices perpetrated by the colonial government against Indians firsthand and grew to despise the empire. And that's when the Natal Indian Congress was founded in 1894 with Gandhi at the forefront. Its main objective was to protect the rights of Indians who were subjected to increasingly racist laws by the white minority government. One of these laws was the Asiatic Registration Act of 1907, which required all Indians living in South Africa to register themselves in government offices and be fingerprinted. This act came in response to the discovery of gold in the Transvaal region of South Africa, which led to a massive influx of Indians who went there to work in the mines. The white population accused Indians of stealing jobs from them and taking advantage of their presence in the country. Thus, the government passed the Asiatic Registration Act to control Indians and drive them out of South Africa. Gandhi was outraged by this unjust law. He refused to comply and encouraged others to do the same. This attitude stemmed from his legal background. As a lawyer, Gandhi knew that everyone was equal before the law. For him, no government had the authority to discriminate against someone based on their race or origin. so he organized passive resistance against the law, encouraging Indians to defy the registration process and face the consequences. This included paying fines or going to jail. The movement gained momentum, and soon the government had to repeal the Asiatic Registration Act and allow Indians to register themselves in major cities, instead of just the farms. This victory was a testament to the power of passive resistance, and it established Gandhi as a leading figure in the Indian independence movement. However, the movement was not without its challenges. Not everyone was comfortable with Gandhi's methods. Some thought they were too radical and would lead to violence, while others believed that they were too passive and wouldn't achieve anything. These debates led to the formation of different political factions within the Congress, which would later become the Indian National Congress, or the INC. Despite these differences, Gandhi continued to advocate for Satyagraha as a means of resisting oppression. He applied the lessons learned from his experience in South Africa to the Indian independence movement when the British government passed the Rowlatt Act in 1919, which gave them sweeping powers to crack down on political dissent. Gandhi responded with a nationwide protest. This included strikes, boycotts, and non-cooperation with the British government. This was the first large-scale nonviolent resistance movement in India, and it demonstrated the power of Satyagraha on a much larger scale. In 1920, the Indian National Congress adopted the resolution for non-cooperation with the British government. This was a turning point in the Indian independence movement, and it marked a shift towards open and mass-based resistance. The resolution called for a boycott of British goods, a refusal to cooperate with the government, and a withdrawal from British institutions such as the police force, the army, and the courts. This was a bold move, and it put the Congress on a collision course with the British government. The government responded with a violent crackdown, which resulted in the deaths of hundreds of protesters. But this only galvanized the movement, and more people joined the call for independence. By 1922, the non-cooperation movement had spread to every part of India. People from all walks of life were participating in the movement, including students, teachers, lawyers, doctors, and businessmen. As the movement grew, so did the internal divisions within the Congress. Some members, including Gandhi, felt that the movement was becoming too radical and was leading to violence. In particular, the No-Kali riots of 1921, in which Muslims and Hindus clashed over religious issues, deeply troubled Gandhi. He feared that the movement was becoming too divisive and could potentially lead to large-scale communal violence. In order to address these concerns, Gandhi called for a temporary suspension of the non-cooperation movement. He wanted to take some time to regroup and try to find a more moderate approach to the independence movement. This decision was met with opposition from some members of the Congress, including its president at the time, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, who argued that the movement should continue. This split within the Congress would eventually lead to the formation of the All India Muslim League, which represented the interests of Muslims in British India. Despite these setbacks, Gandhi continued to advocate for non-violent resistance as a means of achieving independence. He believed that the ultimate goal of Satyagraha was not just to gain political power, but also to transform the hearts and minds of the oppressors. In his view, the British government was not just an external force, but also a product of the values and beliefs of the British people. Therefore, it was possible to change the government by changing the attitudes of the British people towards the Indians. For this reason, Gandhi called for a moral and spiritual awakening among the masses. He encouraged Indians to strive for excellence in all areas of life, such as religion, politics, and economics. He believed that this would not only help them achieve independence, but also build a better society. It's important to note that for Gandhi, Satyagraha was not just a political strategy, but also a way of life. It was rooted in his personal beliefs and values, such as his commitment to truth, love, and nonviolence. These values were shaped by his upbringing in the Jain tradition and his experiences as a lawyer. Overall, the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi continues to inspire people around the world to fight for justice and equality through nonviolent resistance. Asterisk, now you know how Gandhi became a lawyer. Do share your views about how his legal training influenced his activism in the comments below. And for more such insightful videos, stay tuned. Mahatma Gandhi was India's greatest leader. His actions shook the British Empire and led to India's independence. But if you think he was some magical, larger-than-life figure who just showed up in India and started yelling at the British to leave, well, I have some news for you. That's not true. Hi everyone, I'm your host, and welcome back to the channel where we bring you stories of our incredible past. Now when you hear the name Mahatma Gandhi, what comes to mind? A man spinning on his own, wearing simple homespun clothes, fasting for thousands of days, maybe marching to the sea. We see him as a saintly figure who could go without food and somehow still find the strength to march. We see him as a prophet who spoke about non-violence and truth. But this image is only one side of the story. He was also a lawyer by training, and he used this skill set to great effect. Sure, we all know that he studied law in London and came back to India and started working as a barrister. And sure, we all know that he went to South Africa and fought for Indian rights there too. These facts are well known. But how did his legal training shape his activism? How did he use his experience as a lawyer to fight the British Raj? Most people don't know that his activism was deeply informed by his time as a lawyer. And that's what we want to talk about today. So let's begin. We know that Gandhiji returned to India in 1915 and started practicing law. He soon realized that it wasn't really his calling, so he moved to a small town called Coke Bihar and started working for the Indian National Congress. There he met two men who would change his life, Gopal Krishna Gokhale and S. Srinivasa Iyengar. Gopal Krishna Gokhale became his mentor and taught him how to organize and mobilize people for political action. And it was here that Gandhi first learned the importance of mass mobilization. Gokhale believed that the goal of the Indian National Congress should be to win the support of the masses. He felt that the educated middle class alone could not achieve Swaraj, so they needed the support of peasants and workers. This idea was very different from the way the Congress had been working. Until then, earlier, the focus was on petitioning the Viceroy and trying to get the British government to grant them self-rule. But Gokhale believed that the British government would never agree to this, so the Indians would have to take matters into their own hands. It was Gokhale who first coined the term Swaraj, which means self-rule. He wanted the Indians to work towards achieving Swaraj, but he did not believe in violent revolution. Instead, he advocated a program called Satyagraha. Satya means truth and Graha means force. So Satyagraha is the force of truth. This was a new concept in India, but it was inspired by the teachings of various religions. For example, Jesus Christ said, "Blessed are they which do hunger and thirst after righteousness." In Buddhism, there's a concept called loka, which means compassionate strength. Loka is the strength that comes from compassion, and it is this strength that enables us to overcome evil. So Satyagraha was not a new concept, but Gokhale was the first to use it in a political context. He believed that Satyagraha could be used to achieve Swaraj without violence. This was a radical idea, but it appealed to Gandhi, and he began to study it in depth. When you read about Satyagraha, it may sound like a vague, wishy-washy concept, but it's actually a very practical and effective way of resisting oppression. At its core, Satyagraha is about standing up for what you believe in and resisting injustice. This can be done through various means, such as civil disobedience, non-violent resistance, and by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. The key thing is that Satyagraha must be based on truth. You can't fight for something that isn't right or try to achieve your goals through lies and deceit. This requires a lot of courage and conviction, but the results can be truly amazing. Fasting was one of the tools that Gandhi used in his campaigns of Satyagraha. He saw fasting not just as a form of protest, but also as a way to purify himself and to deepen his connection with his followers. In fact, he often used fasting as a way to bring people together. By setting a date for a fast, he would call upon his followers to come together and pray for his well-being. This created a sense of community and solidarity among his followers. and also put pressure on the British authorities to meet his demands. The Quit India movement was a direct challenge. To the British Raj, the demand was clear and concise. Quit India, do Grahanai, or India wants freedom. This was not just a slogan, but a declaration of India's desire for self-rule. It was a rejection of the idea that India could be ruled by a foreign power, and a statement of India's readiness to take its place as a free and independent nation. The Quit India movement was not a spontaneous outburst of violence. It was the result of years of planning and preparation. Gandhi and the Congress had been building up to this movement for years. They knew that it would be a major challenge to the British Raj, and they were prepared for it. One of the things that made the Quit India movement so effective was the level of popular support it enjoyed. People from all walks of life participated in the movement. There were protests, strikes, and acts of civil disobedience all over the country. This showed the British that they could no longer rely on the support of the Indian people. The Quit India movement had a profound impact on the course of Indian history. It was a turning point in the struggle for independence, and it ultimately led to India's freedom. The movement also had a lasting impact on the world. It showed that it was possible to resist colonial rule, and it inspired other countries to do the same. And while all of this is true, there is another important aspect to consider. While Gandhi and the Congress were prepared for the Quit India movement, the British were not prepared for it. The Quit India movement was a complete surprise to the British. They had no idea that the Indians were planning something so bold and so daring. This caught the British off guard, and it made it very difficult for them to respond effectively. The Quit India movement was a testament to the power of planning and preparation. It showed that even the most powerful empire in the world can be defeated if they are not prepared for. Gandhi was arrested on August 9, 1942, along with many other leaders of the Indian National Congress. The arrest sparked a wave of protests and violence across India, but Gandhi remained steadfast in his commitment to nonviolent resistance. He went on several hunger strikes during his imprisonment, and he refused to give in to the demands of the British authorities. Finally, on May 6, 1944, Gandhi was released from prison. He had spent 2 years in jail, but his health was still strong and his resolve was still firm. In the years that followed, Gandhi led the Indian people to victory. On August 15, 1947, India gained independence from the British Raj. It was a moment of great joy and celebration for the Indian people. They had won their freedom after years of struggle and sacrifice. Gandhi was revered as the father of the nation, and he was instrumental in shaping the course of India's future. But let us not forget that Gandhi was not the only one who contributed to India's independence. There were countless others who fought for India's freedom, both during the time of the British Raj and before. We must remember them and honor their sacrifices. As we look back on the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi, let us also remember the contributions of all those who fought for India's independence. Let us honor their sacrifices and celebrate their bravery. That's all for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Do share it with your friends and family, and do let us know in the comments section what you thought of today's episode. We'll be back soon with another amazing episode. Until then, keep learning. I hope you did know that Mohandas Gandhi was a lawyer. Not many people do. And it's ironic because his profession had a huge impact on how he went about his activism. You see, when Gandhi studied law at London's Inner Temple, he learned that the English legal system placed great emphasis on precedent. Basically, if a similar case had been brought before the courts in the past, judges would rule in the same way they did in the present. This is why judges often wear those big white wigs. It's a symbol of tradition and the rule of law. But here's the thing. In India, the British had enacted so many unjust laws that were not based on precedent, but on pure, unadulterated racism that any legal recourse was futile. So what was a young Indian lawyer to do? Well, according to Gandhi, the answer was to go around the law. You see, Gandhi realized that the real power lay not with the judges or the lawyers, but with the people. The masses had the power to make or break the system. All they needed was a little organization and a lot of courage, and this realization led him to develop a unique form of activism that he called Satyagraha, which literally means holding on to truth. But the truth, as we all know, is subjective. So what exactly did Gandhi mean by truth? Well, according to him, the truth was the eternal spirit that resided in all of us, the spirit of love, nonviolence, and justice. And he believed that if people followed this inner voice, they could bring about real change. But how do you fight an empire with love and nonviolence? Well, you do it by refusing to cooperate. Now, don't get me wrong, this isn't some feel-good, hippie crap. There was a method to Gandhi's madness, you see. The British ruled India through a complex web of laws, taxes, tariffs, and regulations. They literally had a finger in every pie. So Gandhi decided to pull out one of their biggest financial backers, the Indian textile industry. At the time, India was paying Britain around £80 million in import duties on textiles. So Gandhi and his followers launched a massive campaign to boycott British cloth. This was a risky move because it meant going without some of the most basic necessities. But the Indian people followed Gandhi's lead and began making their own cloth. And guess what? It worked. The British textile industry collapsed, and the import bill went down to just £2 million by 1920 but Gandhi wasn't done yet. He knew that the real power lay with the government, which is why he launched another movement, the non-cooperation movement. This time he decided to hit the British where it hurt the most, their pockets. The government had introduced a new law that required Indians to buy special licenses if they wanted to sell or transport goods. This was clearly a bad move because Indians were already feeling pretty salty about the whole British textile situation, so they didn't even bother to get the licenses. And this led to the government losing a lot of revenue. In fact, things got so bad that the government had to introduce an ordinance which made it illegal to manufacture or sell khadi. But you know what they say about diamonds and pressure. Anyway, by this point, the British were getting really nervous. They knew that if things kept going the way they were, they might lose India for good. So they offered Gandhi a seat in the Viceroy's Executive Council, basically a junior minister position. But Gandhi turned it down. He knew that the only way to end British rule was to keep up the pressure. And boy, did he do that. Over the next few years, he organized a number of movements against the British, including the famous Salt March. It was a 240-mile walk to the sea that took Gandhi and his followers 12 days to complete. Why the sea, you ask? Well, the British had given a monopoly to one company to manufacture salt in India, and this meant that Indians had to pay high taxes on something that was a basic necessity. So Gandhi decided to make his own salt. He violated the law and produced his own salt, inviting the British to arrest him. And this led to a massive uprising across the country. So yeah, Gandhi might have been a lawyer by training, but he was a goddamn activist at heart. And the best part is that his principles still inspire people around the world to fight for justice today. From the American Civil Rights Movement to the anti-apartheid struggle, Gandhi's ideas have been at the forefront of many social movements. In fact, even Mahatma means great soul in Sanskrit, so you can call him the OG superhero. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and check out our other videos on amazing people. We've got videos on Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King Jr., Malala Yousafzai, and many more. So click on that card up there and let's learn together. Thank you for watching.